Clear prop.
E063, Yankee number 2, following twin traffic, 3 mile final, clear subject, 1 Charlie Bravo, exit in runway 25, going 4 mile final.
This is Behind the Prop with United Flight Systems owner and licensed pilot Bobby Doss and his co-host, Major Airline Captain and designated pilot examiner Wally Mulhern. Now let's go Behind the Prop.
What's up, Wally?
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I am fantastic. This show is being released on Cyber Monday, and it is all about pilot gift ideas for your pilot in your life. It's a holiday season. We're all hard to shop for nowadays. Wally and I are going to talk through really a number of ideas from kind of cheap to high-end things that your pilot might want. If you have a family member looking to buy you a gift, point them to this show. They'll have plenty of gift ideas at the end of it. And we'll put some links in the show notes to some of the things we talk about. But let's jump right in. Wally, we're going to start cheap. What kind of gift ideas are you thinking about on the lower end that you might buy for a family member or a friend or a podcast partner, you know, when the Christmas season comes around?
There you go. Yeah, well, you know, one of the easiest things is, you know, these vintage wall signs that you can get. There's all kinds of metal signs that go great in a hangar, if you have a hangar, if you have a garage, or just a man cave. You know, different airlines, different aircraft manufacturers, Cessna, Piper, Beechcraft, that sort of stuff. There's a one that I've seen. It says, you know, aircraft flight instructor on duty, 50 cents an hour. So you can tell how vintage that is. But that makes something that's really nice. I have them in my hangar, and I have them in my garage as well. I think that's a nice idea.
Yep, there's some fun ones too. You know, the looking for a good woman, but she must have a good plane or something. You know, those sorts of signs. We have those in our pilot supply shop. There's a lot of good stuff at Hobby Lobby, believe it or not. You know, they've done a really good job of kind of creating sections for cars and Marvel comics and those sorts of things. There's a really small bookend at most Hobby Lobbies that have aviation stuff, an old phonetic alphabet, and those sorts of things. So if you're looking for something in the $15 to $30 range, you could probably get some really good vintage signs. And I don't know an aviator that wouldn't hang one of those up somewhere in their garage or office or something like that.
Right. Another great wall hanging thing is a wooden prop.
Yep.
And I, growing up, we had one in our basement, and I wish I knew where it was. I don't know what happened to it, but it was, you know, it was hanging over a door in our basement. It was always there, and so you can find those as well.
Yeah, and I bought a couple on Amazon not too long ago for our classroom upgrade. They're not real props, but it's a piece of wood that's been carved into what looks like a prop, and it's painted with black tips. It looks like a vintage prop, and it was only $24.99. So
wow.
It is not a Piper Cub prop, because that's going to cost you $400 or $500 to find one of those, if you find one at all. But you can find a vintage prop, a vintage piece of wood that looks like a prop for $25 or so.
Right.
Another thing that I think all pilots have, and my bag is covered with them because I happen to own a pilot supply shop, but keychains. And there's a large variety of keychains that would make good stocking stuffers, remove before flight, crew, those sorts of things. One of the things that I'm interested then started carrying in ours is a company named Plane Tags. And what this group has done is they've taken, and I'm assuming, graveyards for aircraft, and they've taken the skins off these planes, and they've stamped the skin with the airplane type, the tail number of the original aircraft. So there could be a 727 out there, Wally, that you flew. You might be able to find in your logbook that you could go find a plane tag for.
Yeah.
That would be a plane that you actually flew one day. But they've got everything from 172s to 747s out there that they've taken those skins off of and made plane tags for,
Right.
Which is pretty neat. Especially if you could find a tag from a plane that someone has flown, that would be a really cool gift idea. They're a little pricey, about $40. but something that would be very unique for the pilot in your life for sure.
Yeah. Next thing, every pilot needs a flight bag, and there are all kinds of flight bags out there. You can go to a local sporting goods store and get a backpack that works probably very well, but I think this is one of the first things before you go and start buying things, the expensive things like an iPad, like a headset. You need to protect it. Now, most headsets will come with its own bag, but I personally, I don't like to have lots of stuff with me when I fly around or when I, go to an airplane. So I have a bag that has a dedicated headset compartment in it with protection. It's extra, padded extra for that. So, you can get a flight bag, probably $30 all the way up to several $100s if you want to get a very nice leather one. So, and that might be something that you may want to ask your pilot what they're looking for, what they want. It's a little, everybody has their own personal preferences, but I would say
it's kind of like a purse for a woman in some regards where they like either big or small, compact or not compact.
Right.
They carry a lot or they don't carry a lot. Right. I am the backpack kind of guy. Literally, I mean, I have a backpack from a sporting goods store with logos and keychains all over it. But it is one of those personal things to some extent. But if you bought them and they didn't like it, I'm sure they could return it and find one they did like as well.
Yeah.
So in that flight bag, we all need a bunch of little tools and things, and I'm sure we've covered a lot of these things in the past on different shows, but a flashlight and a headlamp are something that I think get forgotten in early training. They get bought and probably stuck in a flight bag when they do their night training for a private pilot student. But when you become a real pilot and you pass that check ride and you start flying family and friends and do some nighttime flying, you probably need some sophisticated lighting equipment. Yes, we all have a flashlight on our phone, but something that has a red option is probably good. My flashlight in my flight bag has a green option, which is very thoughtful. I never thought of it until I started using red lights on emergency checklists, and you can't read anything that's on the paper. Right. So that green light option still kind of helps your eyes be able to adjust, but lets you read red on checklists. It's something that can be dimmable or maybe not super bright when you're pre-flighting a plane in the cockpit. You don't want a bunch of white light in there. But a headlamp is also something that you can buy an aviation version. It's probably going to cost more than the non-aviation version. But something that you can stick in a stocking stuffer or somebody's flight bag that they might not have put some effort and money into that they would definitely appreciate for sure.
Yeah, I think a headlamp it's something that I had never really thought about until recently. But if you're out somewhere at night and you're having a little maybe a little issue with your airplane and you're trying to do a little troubleshooting or I don't know, just maybe adding a quart of oil might be a good example. I mean, it's
holding the funnel in the oil and a flashlight's tough.
you got one hand on the oil can, you got one hand on the funnel, and unless the flashlight fits in your mouth, it becomes an issue. So a headlamp, and boy, I mean, you don't have to get an aviation headlamp. You can go down to the local hardware store and probably get one fairly cheap.
Yeah, and just speaking of that, I found some at Harbor Freight recently. It's a store in the United States, hardware type store. In that middle aisle where they got all kinds of good goodies, they had them for $199, a good white headlamp that took one AAA battery, and
wow,
that's good enough to throw in a flight bag.
Yeah,
if it gets damaged, tore up, you're not breaking a $35 aviation headlamp, right?
Right.
And then other things to go in flight bags, we could list them all, but we've shared our opinion. We have the same opinion on this. What about a handheld radio? Every aviator has an opinion on a handheld radio. Do you carry a handheld radio in your flight bag, Wally?
No, but I own one. I own one, and it stays in the hangar, and when I'm up at the airport, I turn it on and I listen to the CTAF at the airport and just listen to the airplanes that are coming in. I feel like a handheld. It's a great idea. All right, to have a third. Most airplanes that we all fly have two radios, a number one and a number two, and so we have this handheld radio in case those two radios go out, and probably the reason that those radios would go out would be an electrical failure. So you're really down to no transponder or anything, and the handheld radio sounds like a great idea. In practice, it's something that we're probably very good at pre-flighting the airplane. We go out there and we walk around the airplane, we check the oil, we check the fuel, we do all that. But we don't probably pre-flight our flight bag. And so when you get up and that handheld radio has been sitting in your bag for 2-3 years, how often do we check the batteries on that handheld radio? And I guarantee every time you're going to need it, the batteries are going to be dead. So I'm not disciplined enough to check that every time. And I've after a while, I realized that it was just a weight. It was a weight in my flight bag that I finally determined that for me personally, it was probably not worth keeping in my flight bag.
A very similar experience for me. I bought one in my instrument training. I think I bought the Sporties brand that, would shoot an ILS, had some navigational functionality. But I never used it in the cockpit. And I just likewise thought it was something that was just in my flight bag that was getting beat up. The antenna was getting caught on things, and I just ended up taking it out of my flight bag. I think if I ever lose both my radios, I'm probably going to go to a cell phone. And my headset pairs automatically with my cell phone, so I'm probably going to make a phone call before I try to get that handheld radio out of my bag nowadays, for sure.
Right.
Another good gift idea in the lower end range is an aviation book of some sort. Whether it's a coffee table book that has a bunch of really cool pictures of planes, and maybe it's a Blue Angels book or a Thunderbirds book. I think all aviators would sit and turn pages and look at those pictures of those planes. To an audio book or a print book. I recently just was turned on to a book called A Higher Calling, or A Higher Call. It was a 13-hour audio book that I listened on, probably 1.5, but a very, very interesting book about a guy who chronicled some aviators from the U.S. and some aviators from Germany, and then put these two guys together that flew this really unique flight where a German plane didn't shoot down a very damaged B-1 or B-17 bomber. And then these guys reunited, and you can watch them meet each other in a hotel room when they're in their 80s. Real crazy story how they ended up meeting each other. But a really, really good book on the effort of what went into World War II and the planes back in those days, and what they were doing, and then why they didn't actually get in a dogfight with each other. But a good book like that is something that I think aviators can appreciate and enjoy. That book has like 9,000 reviews and all 5 stars on Amazon. Really good book. But you can find all kinds of things, historical stories. We had Tammy Jo Schultz on this show, and she's written a book called Nerves of Steel. I listened to that book, really good book on her career, and then what happened on that fateful day when her plane had issues as well. I'm sure there's a Sully book out there. Any aviation books that come to mind that you would recommend, Wally, for the person looking to buy something?
Yeah, I'm an Alaska freak. So I many years ago I did a lot of Anchorage layovers, and there was a bookstore in downtown Anchorage, and I used to go into it every time, and it was right about the time The Deadliest Catch came out. So I started buying all these books in Alaska about crab fishing. Well, after I read them all, which there's probably about 8 of them, I moved down the aisle in this bookstore where they had all these Alaska books, and I found the section on bush pilots. And there are all kinds of books on Alaska bush pilots. One Alaskan bush pilot whose name comes to mind is a gentleman by the name of Don Sheldon. And so I read biographies, autobiographies, all about his career up there. But it's just really fascinating stuff. So, I mean, you could just go on Amazon or just Google Alaska aviation books and all kinds of very, very interesting stories about, a different type of flying than probably most of us are used to.
Yeah, I hear those guys really know how to fly an aircraft up there just because it's cold. It's different altitudes, and they don't have very long runways, to say the least.
Right.
Along the line, still trying to stay in the lower end range, I think that a good backup battery for your flight bag or to give to your pilot in your life for their flight bag is a good option as well. We all have things that run electronic flight bags nowadays, things that run our iPhones and any other cell phone. A good backup battery that could charge those items or keep those things going in the cockpit would be a really good gift. And we probably all have the freebie small little battery pack, but this is one where I would say go ahead and spend a little bit of money and get one that's going to last a long time, produce a lot of power. I carry something about 8 inches long, and I don't forget the name of it, but it'll charge my iPad 3 times. So you could go all the way through a charge and charge it again 3 times. So it's got a lot of juice in it for sure.
I had one. I've since lost it, but I hope somebody's enjoying this battery pack. And the thing that I really liked about the battery pack that I had is it had a built-in cord. So I didn't have to have another cord. So it was extremely convenient to just be able to, this battery pack with the built-in cord would go straight into my iPhone. And with that in mind, maybe keeping a cord to charge your device in airplanes. We're getting to see more and more that have USB ports built into the panel. And obviously, if you don't have a cord, it doesn't do you much good. So, that might be something, and maybe a longer cord than 3 feet. So if you happen to be sitting in the back of an airplane, you can still get it to the front of the airplane and plug your stuff in.
And now, like anything in aviation, it jumps to pricey pretty quick, right? I mean, we've shared all the reasonable things for those pilots you don't really love. These are the pilots. These gifts are for pilots that you really have to love at this point, because the price tag goes up pretty quick. And we'll start with the one that I think we all think about, and that's a headset, right?
Yeah.
I think I walked into this school and bought $110 headset for my first headset, based on the advice of someone who said, look, it'll become your passenger headset one day when you're ready to upgrade, and maybe you don't love flying and you don't end up really needing this headset. So buy something cheap to start. That might be all well and good, and maybe you have someone who's just getting into flight training. Go out there and buy them that first cheaper headset that'll become their passenger headset one day. But I think we're all enamored with technology in some respect, and the Bose noise canceling, Bluetooth attaching headset is what a lot of people aspire to have. A lot of questions about, is it really worth the money? They're over $1,000, but it is a very, very good headset. I have used one in the past. We're a David Clark dealer. I would argue that the David Clark noise canceling headsets are just as good and fit just as comfortably on your head. But it's a preference thing too. Do you want inner ears, outer ears, big cups, little cups? There's a million options out there. But a headset would probably never be a bad gift for a pilot.
Yeah, I currently have lots of headsets. I use a Telex headset with my airline job that just goes in one ear. It's got a molded earpiece. This Telex headset is over 40 years old.
Wow. And
it still works just as well as it did the day I bought it. I also have a couple of David Clark headsets that we use as passenger headsets in our airplanes. One of those David Clark headsets, again, was I used it as a flight instructor in the early 80s, so it's coming up on its 40-year anniversary as well, and it works just fine. And then my everyday headset that I use with general aviation is a Bose, and these things, as long as you take care of them and protect them, they just keep working.
That's true. Maybe you have to replace the ear cups from time to time. They get sweating a little nasty, but and maybe the foam on the mic piece. But other than that, if you take good care of them, they'll structurally last a very, very long time.
And I have used, when I got my seaplane rating, they had Lightspeed headsets in the seaplane, and that worked really well, noise canceling as well. So I don't think you can go wrong with any of the big manufacturers.
As we keep talking about expensive gifts, we're talking technology in the cockpit. Really and truly, for most of us pilots nowadays, we have the ability to see other planes in the air with us and other things going on, but not all of us have made the investment in those tools yet. And I would bet the aviator in your life would love an ADS-B in receiver of some sort. It probably depends on the technology they use to navigate and use in their electronic flight bag, i.e. is it a Garmin flight bag, or is it Wings X, or is it ForeFlight? ForeFlight is definitely an industry leader, but you might check with your aviator to make sure which one they're using. But there's some of these ADS-B receivers that work with many different types, and some that are ForeFlight only, but they range anywhere from $299 without a battery that's built in, to all the way up to $700 with a battery built in and some capabilities. There's a little bit of a buyer's guide need for this. So again, I think I would talk to my aviator in my life, but they have some feature functionalities that are very similar, and then some that aren't quite the same across the board. So I have a feeling your aviator would know the exact one they wanted, and they would be able to give you that information. But a good ADS-B receiver is something that all pilots should have in the cockpit nowadays, for sure.
Absolutely. Seeing traffic in the cockpit is something that if you're not used to it, you probably listen to this and think, well, I'm just looking outside and I've survived all this time without it. What's the big deal? But once you have one and you see all the traffic that's out there that you never saw before, then going without it is something that you're probably a little bit reluctant to do. So yeah, it's definitely something that's very, very nice to have.
Yeah, and it's not just that it's traffic. It's you can see if the traffic in front of you is descending,
right,
or climbing,
right,
turning. There's just so much information about what's going on now, all because of ADS-B. That every aircraft in controlled airspace has this stuff. It's just extremely valuable. And then most of us, when we're in non-controlled airspace, have our ADS-B on, so you're seeing all that traffic as well.
Right.
It'd be very rare that you wouldn't see somebody on your screen.
Yeah.
Other expensive things. We talk about this electronic flight bag. Well, you need something to display this electronic flight bag on, and that gets us into the iPad world. I'm not too familiar with any Android products that are out there. I'm sure there's some. I've read in blogs that, what's the Android version of ForeFlight? There is no such thing for ForeFlight, but there are competitors, and there's some third-party products that are all inclusive, like a Garmin. You can buy a Garmin GPS that it has all in one kind of device. But most pilots are using some form of an iPad. Even people that love and die by Android phones, they probably have an iPad for ForeFlight. And Apple just released what I think is the greatest thing in the world for aviation. They highlighted ForeFlight and electronic flight bags when they first showed this device on their keynote speech, and that is the new iPad mini that works with the Gen 2 Pencil, Apple Pencil. It's a great, great device. I bought one the day that they were launched, and it is truly an amazing device. So with my Apple Pencil on my iPad mini, I don't have to use paper anymore, and that I was looking for that to be the thing that was a game changer for me. I can assure you, I would hope and think that any pilot would put a Apple iPad into use in the cockpit for sure. If you were to be kind enough and love them enough and were able to spend that kind of money and put an electronic flight bag on their iPad.
Yeah, and I do believe the iPad Mini is probably the perfect size for the cockpit. I have one, a very old one that we use in our airplane, but when I'm doing check rides and most of my general aviation flying, I'm just using a normal iPad. It maybe doesn't fit on a yoke mount, that kind of thing, but if you're looking for just a iPad for general use, the normal iPad Air works just fine. I do have the iPad Pro, and it's probably overkill. I probably don't need all that. The iPad Air works just fine. I will say this: if you're going to buy someone an iPad, understand that to get the position of the airplane displayed on that iPad, you have to buy the iPad that has cellular capability, because that has the GPS chip in it. Now, you don't have to buy a cellular plan, but you have to have that in there. So if you have an iPad and you do not have an ADS-B receiver and you want to be able to display your position on the iPad, you're going to have the one with the cellular chip in it. So it's another probably $130 or so for most iPads to get the cellular capable version.
And with that iPad comes the decision on what do I want to put it on, right? Or how do I want to take care of it and protect it? And that's where you would need some form of a knee board, a carrying case. Wally said yoke mount. There's a million versions out there as well. A window suction cup, which I'm not a fan of because it does create a small blind spot in some cases. But you're going to need something. And I have become a huge fan of a product line called Flyboys and Pivot. They're a local company here, less than 5 miles from this airport. I've met many of their company, and I just think what they're doing and what they're innovating on is really, really cool stuff. They have a connection that will fit on any of their iPad kind of cases, and then it'll fit on your knee board. It'll fit on a window suction cup. Once you have their brand, you have a lot of options to mount the iPad into your knee board, a yoke mount, or a window mount. And I just think they've come up with some innovative stuff. So we'll put some links to their stuff in the show notes. But if you want a case and you want something that's super versatile for the cockpit, the iPad mini case from Flyboys is one that you can't go wrong with for sure. Next, since aviation is expensive and we're talking about expensive toys and gifts, every aviator could enjoy a gift certificate of some sort. Wally, I've heard you say in the past you buy your girls something that are both pilots every year at this time of year. What is it that you buy your girls every time of this time of year?
It's funny because we just talked about this the other day. We were having dinner and I brought this up when I was in high school. Every year for Christmas, I got 2 tires. Not a really cool gift, but I got 2 tires every year that went on my 1974 Mustang, and it was just a yearly thing. And that kind of thing with my daughters is a subscription to ForeFlight. Their subscription literally runs out on 12/25. So I just said to them, my oldest daughter is now with an airline. I asked her, I said, do you still want a subscription to ForeFlight? And she said, oh yeah, I do. and it was funny because when I brought this up to them, I thought they would both say, yeah, I guess that's a good Christmas gift. But they actually said it enthusiastically. They both said, oh yeah, we want our subscription to ForeFlight. So I was kind of excited.
That's just one of those things that if you got a great dad that's going to pay for it, you don't want to pay for that one yourself, right, for sure. But there is a way on ForeFlight to go out and buy a $100, $200, or $300 gift certificate. So if you have heard of that, or you think your aviator would enjoy that, you could buy them the gift certificate. They could tag it on the end of their subscription if they already have one, and it's something that they would enthusiastically be happy about. There's all kinds of other gift certificate ideas that are out there. Just money at a flight school would be great. And some flight schools probably give you a little bit of a bump. If you put $1,000 on someone's account, they might make it $1,200 or $1,100 if they left it on the account. You can get maybe an online course for your aviator. We're always trying to learn more and be better pilots. So maybe you have a private pilot aviator in your family and they want to get their instrument rating, then buying them a $200 or $300 online course for that instrument rating is something that I know they would be very appreciative of and would save them quite a bit of money on their training, no matter what the rating is they're working towards. I'm a big fan of King School. They take a bad rap because some of their videos are old, but man, they did something very unique and early on in aviation, and I'm a huge fan of what they've done, and their videos hold true today just like they did in the 80s and 90s when they were making all those things. So if you don't know where to go, I would highly recommend King Schools. Other type subscriptions, maybe a membership to the AOPA, that's the Airplane Owners and Pilots Association. It's a group that does a lot of good for aviation and aviators. The annual subscription to that service is $80, and something that I think every aviator should be a part of. Maybe a magazine subscription, Wally, like Plane and Pilot magazine. Probably get that on Cyber Monday. Today, the day you're listening to this show, hopefully, probably get that for less than $10 a year, maybe, to get somebody in your aviator family a monthly subscription to that magazine.
Yeah, another subscription that I've subscribed to that I really find very helpful to me is NTSB Reporter. It's a organization that takes the NTSB accident data and puts it in a little bit of a newsletter format. Comes out every month, and I don't even know what it is, the cost, but it's probably about $20-$25 for that subscription. And basically you get they take one accident and really go into depth on it, and then all the other ones are a little bit more abbreviated, if you will. I mean, this is all stuff that you could find on the NTSB website, but it's somebody who's actually, or some organization who's actually gone and organized it. It's a good read. It's very educational.
Lots of good gift certificate type ideas. One that we were joking about before we started recording is, why don't you buy your aviator a check ride? They could come take a check ride with Wally, or Wally could come find them wherever they are. A check ride fee is something that I think is a big expense that's hard for some aviators to come up with, and a reason why I would say some aviators don't even finish their certificates at times is because they can't come up with the dollars for that last mile.
Right.
And something that would be a really, really good gift if you could afford to do that for a friend or a family member. A check ride fee, gift certificate, or the money would be really, really nice for sure. And the kind of gift certificate idea, or buying something that an aviator might need, is a lot of us start with paper logbooks, and flight instructors that work here get to where they put 1,500 hours in their logbook, and they're hoping to convert it to electronic logbook. There are some services out there. I have a friend who does it. If you need to find somebody, feel free to send me an email. I'll put you in contact with them. But they'll take your paper logbook and convert it to put it in whatever electronic flight bag you want, ForeFlight as an example, and you won't have to do all that pinning all those flight records in. They'll do it for you. Another great gift certificate idea for a pilot or aviator in your family or friend group. Last thing I'll throw out there is I think a simulator is important for home use as people are going through their aviation career. Instrument rating is probably what most of us think is the most difficult rating to get, and it's because it's a lot of book knowledge, and it's a lot of flying knowledge that doesn't come really quick and easy. And if you had a home simulator, you can repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat things that'll make you a much better instrument pilot. I would bet on Cyber Monday there'll be deals on both X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Their list price, both of them, are $60. I highly recommend a joystick. I always recommend the Logitech X52. It's got two pieces to it, one that'll help you fly the plane and one that'll give you like throttle and flaps and brakes. And I think it's important that you're touching those switches and moving things while you're working on checklists, even on Home Simulator. So if you have someone in your life that is working to be a professional pilot, a simulator, piece of software, and a nice joystick, probably all in, you're thinking $225, probably less than 1 hour of flight time with an instructor in most cases. It is a good investment for that aviator in your life, and they will get to practice, and something that I highly recommend. Anything else to add, Wally, to this holiday gift idea show for pilots?
No, I guess one thing we didn't touch on was pilot watches, and there's just all kinds of watches. I have an Apple Watch. I don't have a dedicated pilot watch, but Garmin has some really cool ones, and so that's a thought as well, I guess.
Oh, and there's many other ideas. Anything with a tail number on it for the person who owns a plane, to ID card holders, to, the list goes on and on. You can surely find something, but these are probably the items that we discussed top of mind for most aviators, and will make them happy pilots and happy holiday people for sure. As always, fly safe and stay behind the prop.
Thanks for checking out the Behind the Prop podcast. Be sure to click subscribe and check us out online at BehindTheProp.com. Behind the Prop is recorded in Houston, Texas. Creator and host is Bobby Doss. Co-host is Wally Mulhern. The show is for entertainment purposes only and is not meant to replace actual flight instruction. Thanks for listening, and remember, fly safe.